Mr. Stockdale, how much assistance did you need at the beginning of your IB program?
That was a long time ago. Math quite a bit. But I think the teachers were very available, and the students were too. We kind of organize our own like student study groups like outside of school, and I mean, and even on just little things, because you really get to know everybody else who's doing the diploma really well, since it's such like a small group that you could always just call someone else if you had a question about a problem or an assignment, and everyone was always willing to like work on it because we all knew the workload everybody was going through. So I think it's everyone was available to help. I certainly needed some though.
I think another consideration is that, and it really hasn't been discussed much, is that the IB teachers are also being evaluated. So when the students complete their IB exams and they're sent all over and you get the student scores back, you also get feedback on the teacher. So the teacher is taking a risk and the teacher is out there, and I'm sure that it's in a teacher's best interest to try to prepare students as well as possibly can be done.
Ms. Lund, if the regular curriculum is proving to be difficult, how will IB help, or should a student not attempt IB if it's difficult?
I think it probably depends what the difficulty is. I think if a student is bored and just really is not interested in sitting down and doing rote kind of work, that's something I think that IB would really be helpful with, because it does challenge a student, it does encourage them to think. And if a student has a particular interest, maybe a student is very interested in film or video, that's a great class for a student to take. If a student is absolutely struggling academically, then it is a rigorous program, and it may be too difficult for the student, but it is not a program that is just for the brightest of the bright. So I think it's absolutely an individual issue and if a student is signed up for the diploma program and they're concerned, then we should sit down and talk about it, and I can talk to the teachers they have now and see what they think.
Very good. Mr. Stockdale, is it realistic for a student to participate in athletics in school year-round and do IB?
I would say yes. I mean, I didn't. I really wasn't involved in anything at my high school outside of the diploma. But I had a lot of other extracurriculars like outside of school that I managed to do. We had dibcans who played sports, who were in the band, who were in like student council. So it's definitely manageable, yeah.
Can I just add something to that? Being that I have applicants coming from full IB schools where it's not even a choice if you're in the IB curriculum or not, and students who are coming from schools where there's the full AP, it's really about time management, but you can absolutely balance them. It's about knowing how to balance your time. But I know it's a concern of, well, if I do this rigorous program, will I be able to do anything else, whether it's on the weekends, after school? Just think about all the schools where students don't have the choice. They're in IB programs, but they're also doing the newspaper after, doing their teams, doing youth group and things like that.
Ms. Che, maybe you could help us with this one. If you're not the smartest of the bunch, is this program a good idea for you?
Well, like I said before, it's the type of student, the students who are curious, the students who like to argue, the students who want to dissect, the student who always has their hand up and they're always asking, well, why this and why that? And, those type of students, they will do well in an IB course, and those aren't always the students who are your top, scorers on the test. So I think the answer is yes, a student can do well if they, I think, embrace some of the ideas behind the learner profile, the inquisitive, open-minded, those kinds of qualities.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, what was your preparation like in your freshman and sophomore year of high school prior to your 2 years in the IB program?
Okay, the particular IB program I went to was they did it sort of as a magnet kind of program, and so the only student in the particular program I went to, the only students were there were all diploma candidates, and it was a 4-year thing where the first 2 years, the freshman and sophomore years, were essentially preparation years for then the 2-year formal IB program in the junior, senior year. And so for me, it was essentially a 4-year IB program, IB-like program, and it was accelerated up through all 4 years. Ethan's experience was a little bit different, if you want to explain how
I mean, it was whereas you weren't necessarily locked in. We had what they called pre-IB, pre-AP classes, freshman and sophomore year, and even I think in 8th grade. So, I mean, I was with it ever since I was in 8th grade, so I always knew that I was going to do the diploma. But there was lots of kids who would only take the pre-classes, and then they might just take juniors English, or they may have not taken any of the pre-classes and then decided junior year they wanted to take IB. So we had kind of a lot of flexibility up until you join the actual IB classes, and then you're kind of locked in for the 2 years. So that, yeah, but there's prep classes if you wanted them, but they weren't necessary. You didn't have to take them.
Ms. Lund, music's always been considered to be important in a well-rounded education. How can the Dexter Music Program, which is outstanding, be incorporated into the IB program?
Well, there is an arts option for music, and I think a lot of people are interested in pursuing that. That's one of the classes I mentioned earlier that I would like to see added. It's different than the music that we have at Dexter because it doesn't just focus on performance. It's also on theory and composition and I think history. So it's a different experience, but I think it's a really valuable experience because I think IB is really all about language and music is another form of language, and so they want students to learn how to communicate in music, learn how to write music. So it's one of those things that we want to investigate, and hopefully we'll have a teacher that would want to teach it.
Mr. Scott and Ms. Lumpies, you'll love all these math questions. A couple questions that are very similar. What's the main difference between Math SL and Math Studies SL? How do these two compare in rigor to calculus? And would it be possible to take both calculus and an IB class?
First on the Math S, I don't know a lot about the Math SL studies.
Math Studies class is designed for those juniors that would be kind of stepping into the Algebra 2. So as their freshman and sophomore year, they would have completed Algebra 1 and Geometry, and then they would be moving on into Algebra 2, and then really a senior level math course. Whereas Math SL, that's more of as a sophomore, you've already completed your Algebra 2, and you're moving on, as Mr. Scott had already said, into your pre-calculus and calculus. Math Studies has just a touch of a little introduction into calculus with a little bit of application, but it's just one chapter. So I think that's my
And then, with Math SL, most of the senior year, the majority of your senior year is calculus. Okay. The main difference, I guess.
Somebody, I think, wants to know if they could take AP Calculus and an IB class.
Both classes. I don't know that it would make much sense to do both. There would be a lot of overlap there. I would say in terms of the AP Calculus class, I mean, obviously we come in the senior year and you start right away with AP Calculus, and it's designed for the AP test. The IB Math SL version doesn't go as in-depth into the calculus as we would in the AP Calculus class. You cover the same topics, but for example, the applications aren't as maybe complex, I guess I would say. Where we delve into, for example, if you do an optimization problem, we will do many different types of optimization problems in AP Calculus where IB may focus on just a few of those areas. You'll still do the topic of optimization, and probably a kid who took the IB Calc or IB Math class could probably take the AP Calc test without actually taking the AP Calc course. I wouldn't guarantee maybe that their scores would be as good as someone who took the AP Calc class that's designed for AB, but I would bet they could probably still score in that 4 range, maybe not that 5 range. But if they, I wouldn't say you take both courses. I would say if you're interested in still taking the AP Calc test but want to take IB, that's certainly something you could look at. And again, not having taught it, it's hard for me to say how in-depth I can go, because being the fact that I've taught AP Calculus, I may get to their senior year and go, well, I've got a little more time than I thought I had, so now I can go more in depth with these guys and then say, hey, maybe you should try both, take both tests. But until I've actually gotten into it and done it for 2 years, it's going to be hard to say that.
And that does commonly happen when I've talked to other IB diploma coordinators. A lot of kids will take Mathematics SL and take the AP test.
We had the option. We actually had a lot of kids who, well, a few kids who took both the IB Math test and the AP Calc test and did well on both of them. So it's doable, I would say, but yeah, they are a very different focus.
This next card has a series of questions. The first one I think we've addressed. How does IB differ from AP? Is there anything anybody thinks they would like to add to that?
I mean, I just, not having done it, not being in the IB program yet, not having taught it, I see a difference of, you know, because I hear some kids maybe want to take certain IB courses, and certainly if you're interested in film and things like that. I think it's, again, a question of the type of kid you are and where your focus is. If you're looking for a broad range and a global perspective, then I say IB is the way to go. But if you're a kid that says, math and science is my thing, that's what I want to do, I don't want to focus on other stuff, I want to just focus on math and science, and I'm going to take AP Bio, and I'm going to take physics, and I'm going to take AP Calc, and I'm going to take all the math and science I can possibly take, then that's maybe the way you need to go. That's just my personal opinion.
It's an interesting question. What are the types of topic options for the extended essay?
It's totally up to the student. You just have to relate whatever your research area is to an IB subject. So that's pretty easy to do because the IB courses it's a well-rounded liberal arts education. So you're going to study English and a second language and individuals and societies, math, experimental science, and art. And I think just about any topic you could come up with could probably be related back to one of those areas. So it is up, I think probably the hardest thing is going to be for a student to decide what they want to do it on and come up with a narrow focus.
Mr. Stockdale, what did you do your extended essay on?
Islamic fundamentalism. Just in a particular sect of it from Saudi Arabia was really my main focus. But I know people who did theirs on like a comparison of totalitarian governments like in Eastern or in Western Europe in like the 30s and 40s. So there's a huge range of topics that you can do, and they really will fit about into any category. So I think mine ended up being like a world religion paper or something like that.
Ms. Lund, can the extended essay be opinionated?
Well, I know it has to be based on research, and I would imagine that if you're drawing conclusions, that would be somewhat opinionated. So I think you could probably do that, as long as it's based on research.